My wife invited her entire family to watch as she presented me with divorce papers on my birthday. I stared at her and asked, "Why today?" Her brother replied, "Because humiliation suits you." I chuckled, reached into my pocket, and pulled out my papers. "I filed last week. I also sold your car." I should have known something was off the second I pulled into the driveway. There were too many cars. At first, I thought maybe Sandra had thrown me a surprise party. Not that she was the type, she hadn't made a real effort on my birthday in years. But seeing all those familiar vehicles lining the curb and crowding the driveway, it made me hesitate. I shut the car door and stood there for a second, taking it all in. The old blue Chevy belonged to her brother, Dustin. The white Lexus was her mother's. There was a black sedan, probably Marla's, and a red Ford, the first recognized as her cousin Brent's. Why the HLL were they all here? I glanced at my watch. 6:48 p.m. My boss had let me off early since it was my birthday, and I'd been looking forward to kicking back with a glass of bourbon. Maybe order some takeout. But now, my stomach twisted. Something wasn't right. I grabbed my keys and headed inside. The second I walked through the door, I knew. The living room was packed. Sandra's family sat around like they were waiting for a goddamn performance. Dustin was slouched in an armchair, arms crossed, looking way too smug. Marla was perched on the couch, sipping wine like this was entertainment. Even Sandra's mother, Elaine, had that tight-lipped expression she got whenever she was silently judging someone. And there, in the middle of it all, stood Sandra, my wife. She was dressed too nicely for a casual night at home. Her dark green dress hugged her curves, and her makeup was carefully done. She looked excited, eager, like she'd been waiting for this moment. I shut the door behind me slowly. "What's going on?" Sandra smiled. Not a warm smile. A calculated one. "Happy birthday, Trevor." Dustin snorted. "Yeah, real special day." I narrowed my eyes. "Sandra." She stepped forward, holding a manila envelope in her manicured hands. "Here," she said, handing it to me. I took it, my heart thudding a little harder now. Something about the weight of it in my hands made me sick. I pulled the flap open and slid out the papers. It only took one glance to see what they were. Divorce papers. I didn't react right away. I just let my eyes scan the text, the official seals, the lines for signatures. The moment felt surreal, like I was outside of my own body, watching this unfold. I looked up at her. "Why today?" My voice was steady. "Calm." Sandra tilted her head, her eyes shining with amusement. "Because it felt right." Dustin smirked. "Because humiliation suits you." There it was. That's what this was. A goddamn show. I let out a slow breath, looking around at the audience she'd gathered. Every single one of them was waiting for me to react. To break down. To get angry. That's when I felt it, a slow, creeping heat rising in my chest. Not panic. Not even sadness. Just pure seething anger. I let out a chuckle. Not the kind you make when something's funny. The kind you make when you finally see the truth, clear as day. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my own manila envelope. I tossed it onto the coffee table in front of them. Sandra's smile faltered. Dustin's brows knitted together. Marla set her wine down. I folded my arms and looked at Sandra. "I filed last week." Silence. The tension in the room shifted. Sandra blinked, her lips parting slightly. "What?" I shrugged, my expression cool. "Yeah. Had a feeling this was coming. So, I beat you to it." Dustin scoffed. "Bullcrap." I nodded toward the papers. "See for yourself." Sandra snatched up the envelope and pulled out the documents. The second her eyes landed on the filing date, her entire body stiffened. Elaine peered over her shoulder. She started, but I cut her off. "Oh, and one more thing." I smiled. "I sold your car." Sandra's head snapped up. "You what?" I slipped my hands into my pockets. "The BMW. The one I bought for you. Sold it yesterday." Her face drained of color. You can't do that," she sputtered. "Actually, I can," I said easily. Title was in my name. Took the money, paid off some debts, and booked myself a nice little trip. Brent muttered, "Holy crap." Marla's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Dustin, however, pushed off the couch, stepping forward like he was ready to swing. "You son of a BT," I lifted a hand. "Careful. You really want to get in my face about this." Dustin hesitated. I knew him. He was all bark, no bite. Sandra, meanwhile, was still clutching my papers, shaking now. You planned this?" I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. "You think I didn't notice? The late nights? The business trips where you never took a single damn call in front of me?" Sandra's eyes widened slightly. "Yeah." She knew where this was going. "I had you followed," I continued. "Private investigator. He got everything. Photos, messages, timestamps, hotel records. Elaine gasped. Dustin took a step back. Sandra? She looked like she might throw up. You're lying, she whispered. I let that hang in the air for a second. Let her feel the weight of her own damn choices. Then I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped a few times, and tossed it onto the coffee table. A set of photos stared back at her. Sandra. Wrapped around some guy outside a hotel. Sandra. Holding his hand in a bar across town. Sandra. Kissing him in the front seat of a car. Elaine covered her mouth. Brent let out a low whistle. Damn, Sandra. Marla looked at her sister like she'd just met her for the first time. Dustin? He was fuming. Who is he? I asked Sandra, my voice quiet. Or should I say, who was he? Because I sent all of this to his wife too. Sandra swayed on her feet. You didn't. Oh, I did. I let the word settle. And guess what? His wife's a lawyer. A damn good one. So I imagine you'll be hearing from her soon. Sandra's hands shook. And for the first time that night, she looked truly, utterly defeated. I grabbed my coat, took one last look around, and then turned back to her. Have fun explaining all this, I said. Then I walked out the door. I walked out of that house with my head held high, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my damn throat. I barely heard the murmurs and sharp whispers that erupted behind me the moment I stepped off the porch. My fingers tightened around my car keys as I approached my truck, but my hands were steady. I wasn't angry anymore. No, I was free. The cold night air hit my face as I took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle in my bones. It was over. Or at least, the worst part was the performance. The betrayal laid out like a spectacle for her family's amusement. They thought I was gonna break. They thought I'd sit there, humiliated, while they watched me crumble. Instead, I flipped the goddamn script. I climbed into my truck, gripping the steering wheel, and just sat there for a moment. My reflection in the rearview mirror stared back at me, jaw tight, eyes sharp, a small smirk still lingering on my lips. Damn, that felt good. I had played my hand perfectly. Sandra wasn't expecting me to outmaneuver her like that. She thought she'd control the narrative, make me out to be the pathetic, clueless husband who got dumped on his birthday. Instead, she ended up looking like a fool. I started the truck, the engine rumbling beneath me, and let out a slow breath. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced down. Dustin, you think you're a bad sus? You're a joke, Trevor. Always have been. Watch your back. I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. Dustin was really trying to act tough over text? Pathetic. I didn't reply. Instead, I threw my truck into reverse and pulled out of the driveway, not sparing the house a second glance. I drove straight to my buddy Paul's place. Paul had been my best friend since college. We'd seen each other through breakups, bad jobs, and worse hangovers. And when I told him a few weeks ago that I was filing for divorce, he was the only one who didn't act surprised. You sure you don't want to wait it out? He'd asked me. Divorces get messy. They don't get messier than a miserable marriage, I'd told him. Now, standing in front of his apartment door, I was glad I had someone to turn to. I knocked, and within seconds, the door swung open. Paul took one look at me and whistled. Crap. That bad, huh? I stepped inside. Worse. You got anything to drink? Paul grabbed a bottle of whiskey off the counter. Tell me everything. I did. From the moment I walked in to the second I dropped the evidence in front of Sandra, I laid it all out while Paul poured us both a drink. By the time I finished, he was grinning like a madman. That, he said, lifting his glass, was a masterclass in revenge. I clinked my glass against his and took a long sip. Yeah. But it ain't over yet. Paul leaned back in his chair. What do you mean? I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. She's gonna come after me for more. Just wait. I filed first. Yeah, but she's not the type to let go that easy. She's probably already trying to find a way to screw me over. Paul nodded, setting his drink down. So, what's your next move? I smirked. Oh, I'm not done yet. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of messages. Sandra, you son of a BTCH. Call me. No. Marla, you really had to pull that stunt last night? You're in shoal, Trevor. Brent, bro, that was wild. Respect. I chuckled at that last one. At least someone in her family had a sense of humor. I ignored all of them. Instead, I focused on the email I had been waiting for. A response from my lawyer. Subject: divorce proceedings. Next steps. I clicked it open, scanning the text quickly. Trevor, good news. Since you filed first, we have the advantage. Sandra's assets and financials are now in question, especially with the evidence you provided. I'm recommending we push for an expedited resolution to prevent her from making a claim on anything additional. Let's set up a time to go over the finer details. I smiled to myself. Sandra was in for a rude awakening. But before I could enjoy my victory, my phone rang. I checked the caller ID. Elaine. Sandra's mother. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. I swiped to answer. Trevor, Elaine's voice was tight. We need to talk. I leaned back against my couch. I don't think we do, Elaine. Don't be childish, she snapped. Sandra is in pieces. She told me what you did, filing before her, selling her car. That was cruel. I raised an eyebrow. Cruel? Elaine, your daughter cheated on me. Repeatedly. She planned to humiliate me in front of the whole family. And you're calling me cruel? Elaine huffed. I don't condone what she did, but you didn't have to embarrass her like that. I laughed. This woman was unbelievable. Elaine. She invited a damn audience to watch me get blindsided on my birthday. She wanted me to crumble, to make a fool of myself. Silence. Then, quieter, she said you sent the evidence to that man's wife. Damn right I did. Elaine sighed. Trevor, you don't understand. That man, he's someone important. My fingers tightened around my phone. Who? I asked sharply. Elaine hesitated. Then, in a tone I'd never heard from her before, she said, You just started something bigger than you realize. A cold chill ran down my spine. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I wondered if I had underestimated just how deep this betrayal went. I gripped my phone tighter. Elaine, I said slowly, my voice colder now, who the HLL is he? She hesitated. For the first time in all the years I had known her, Elaine sounded nervous. I can't say over the phone, she murmured. But Trevor, listen to me. This isn't just some ordinary affair. You need to be careful. I let out a humorless laugh. Careful? The HLL does that mean? Elaine sighed. Look, I don't agree with what Sandra did, but you sending those photos? That was a mistake. You think I regret it? I snapped. I wanted his wife to know the truth. His wife. Elaine let out a bitter chuckle. Trevor, that's not just his wife. That's Alyssa Baines. The name didn't register immediately. But then, like a punch to the gut, it clicked. Baines. As in Michael Baines. As in one of the most powerful men in this city. I ran a hand over my face. Are you telling me Sandra's been screwing around with Michael Baines' son? Elaine's silence was enough confirmation. Michael Baines was one of the biggest real estate moguls in the state. His name carried weight, the kind of weight that could crush people if he wanted to. And his son? Tyler Baines. A trust fund brat who had been handed everything in life and still managed to screw it up. He was in and out of tabloids for bar fights, DUIs, and God knows what else. And Sandra had been sleeping with him. A sharp laugh escaped me. Jesus Christ, Elaine. Your daughter really outdid herself, huh? This isn't funny, Trevor, she snapped. You sent those photos to Alyssa. You think she's just gonna take it quietly? I wasn't sure. Alyssa Baines wasn't just some rich wife sitting in the background. She had power too. And unlike her husband, she wasn't known for keeping things clean and professional. If Alyssa wanted revenge, she wouldn't just take it to court. She'd burn everything down. And now, I was caught in the middle. I exhaled through my nose. Well, it's done. If Sandra's worried, that's her problem. You don't get it, Elaine hissed. If Alyssa goes after Tyler, Michael Baines will come after you. I stiffened. Elaine continued, her voice lower now. Sandra didn't just cheat on you, Trevor. She was in deep with him. Tyler, he gave her money. Gifts. She was planning to leave you for him. And now, you just destroyed all of that. I let that sink in. Sandra had never wanted a clean break. She wasn't just leaving me, she was upgrading. She had probably imagined a life of luxury with Tyler. The kind where she didn't have to worry about money, where she could rub shoulders with people who mattered. And I had blown it all up in a single night. I rubbed my temple, feeling a headache creeping in. So what? I'm supposed to be scared? Let him come after me. Elaine's voice turned sharp. Don't be stupid. These people don't play fair. A tense silence stretched between us. Then Elaine spoke again, softer this time. I called to warn you. You have no idea what you just stepped into, Trevor. Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at my phone for a long moment. Then I did the only thing I could do. I laughed. Because of course Sandra's affair wasn't just some sleazy office fling. Of course she had tangled herself with a powerful family. And now, crap was about to get real. I didn't hear from Sandra for the rest of the day. No calls, no texts. Not even a half-assed attempt to demand her car back. Which meant only one thing. She was scrambling. And I was right. Because by the next morning, she had made her move. I woke up to a notification from my bank. A withdrawal attempt. My heart kicked up as I tapped on the alert. $12,000 withdrawal request pending approval. What the HLO? My stomach dropped. I knew that number. It was from the joint account Sandra and I had barely used for years. It only existed for household expenses, and I had never touched it without telling her first. Apparently, Sandra didn't feel the same way. I grabbed my phone and dialed the bank immediately. The moment an agent answered, I cut straight to the point. I need to stop a withdrawal from my joint account. It's unauthorized. Of course, sir. Can you confirm your name? I gave them my details, and the woman on the line hummed as she pulled up my account. All right, I see the pending request. This was initiated late last night. Yeah, I didn't approve that. A pause. It was requested by Sandra Holloway, my soon-to-be ex-wife. I gritted my teeth. Decline it. And I want my name removed from that account today. The agent hesitated. Sir, since it's a joint account, she does have withdrawal rights. Not anymore, I cut in. I'm divorcing her. Lock it down. A few seconds passed before she sighed. Understood. I'll send over the necessary forms for you to remove your authorization. The withdrawal will be denied. I exhaled, some of the tension leaving my shoulders. Thank you. But just as I was about to hang up, the agent spoke again. Mr. Holloway, I don't mean to overstep, but this isn't the only recent activity on your accounts. I froze. What do you mean? The agent hesitated, then continued. There was an attempt to access one of your credit cards last night. Someone tried to request a new card to be shipped to an alternate address. My blood ran cold. Which card? Your business credit card. I sat up straighter. Who made the request? The agent hesitated. It was a call-in request. But the person on the line knew all the verification details. A sharp realization hit me. Sandra. Of course she had my details. We had been married for nearly 2 decades. She knew my security questions, my business expenses, everything. And now, she was trying to wipe me out. My grip tightened around the phone. Cancel it. And flag all my accounts for security review. No changes without my direct approval. Understood, Mr. Holloway. As I ended the call, a slow, burning rage settled in my chest. Sandra wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to ruin me. And if she thought I was going to sit back and let it happen, she had another thing coming. I sat there for a long moment, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Sandra wasn't just playing dirty. She was going for blood. She thought she could humiliate me, steal from me, and walk away unscathed. She thought wrong. I needed to act fast. I grabbed my laptop and logged into my accounts. Every single one. Bank accounts, credit cards, retirement funds, anything that had my name on it. And sure enough, Sandra had been busy. There were multiple failed login attempts on my personal checking account. A locked-out alert on my investment portfolio. And the biggest red flag? An inquiry had been made about the title to my house. My pulse spiked. I was an STPID. Sandra was trying to move assets before the divorce finalized. Maybe even put things in her name before I could legally stop her. Not happening. I grabbed my phone and dialed my lawyer, Melissa Carter. She answered after the second ring. Trevor, she greeted, her tone calm. I was just about to email you. I reviewed the paperwork, and everything looks solid on our end. Melissa, we have a problem, I said, cutting to the chase. Sandra is trying to drain our joint accounts, take out credit cards in my name, and I just saw an inquiry on the title to my house. There was a brief silence. Then, in a tone much sharper than before, she said, She did what? You heard me. Melissa let out a slow breath. Okay. First, I'll file an immediate financial freeze on all joint assets. That means she won't be able to touch anything until the divorce is settled. Do it. Now. I will. But Trevor. She hesitated. This isn't just divorce tactics. Sandra's crossing into fraud territory. If she actually tried to take out credit in your name, that's a crime. I clenched my jaw. Then I want everything documented. Every attempt, every transaction. If she wants to play dirty, I'll make sure she drowns in her own mess. Melissa was quiet for a second. Then, with a small chuckle, she said, I like this side of you. Yeah. I muttered. Me too. Because for the first time since this all started, I wasn't reacting. I was playing offense. I spent the next few hours locking down everything, changing passwords, securing accounts, moving important assets to my personal holdings. By the time I was done, Sandra had nothing left to take. But I wasn't finished. Because I still had one massive question hanging over my head. Tyler Baines. And what Elaine had said. You just started something bigger than you realize. I needed answers. So, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I called Alyssa Baines. It took some digging, but I found her business number. Alyssa wasn't just a rich housewife. She ran one of the largest law firms in the state. And now, she was picking up my call. Who is this? Alyssa's voice was sharp. I leaned back in my chair. Trevor Holloway. Sandra's husband. Silence. Then a quiet, ah. She knew exactly who I was. Why are you calling me? Because your husband's son has been screwing my wife, I said bluntly. And I'm guessing you already knew that. Alyssa let out a short breath, almost like a laugh. Yes, she admitted. I knew. Something in her tone sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. It was amusement. I straightened. Then you also know I sent you proof. Oh, I received it. Her voice was silky smooth now. And believe me, it was helpful. I didn't like the way she said that. I frowned. What do you mean? Alyssa hummed. Trevor, let me give you some advice. Be careful where you step. You think you're dealing with Sandra? You're not. Not anymore. My grip on the phone tightened. What are you saying? A pause. Then, in a voice that was almost too calm, she said, You just declared war on the Baines family. And they don't lose. The call went dead. And suddenly, for the first time since this all started, I wondered if I had just made a massive mistake. Alyssa Baines' warning lingered in my mind long after she hung up. You just declared war on the Baines family. And they don't lose. Maybe they weren't used to losing. But neither was I. I wasn't some helpless fool scrambling to pick up the pieces of my life. Sandra thought she could humiliate me, steal from me, and walk away laughing? Not a damn chance. If they wanted war, I'd give them one. It didn't take long for Sandra to realize she was screwed. By the next morning, Melissa called me with an update. We froze all joint accounts and flagged her attempts at unauthorized withdrawals, she said, sounding smug. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your house? She actually tried to file paperwork to put it in her name. I scoffed. Figures. Did it go through? Melissa laughed. Nope. I had it blocked the second you called me yesterday. But Sandra's going to find out today that she legally owns nothing. I could practically hear the grin in her voice. She's desperate, Trevor. And desperate people make mistakes. I smirked. Let's make sure she makes a few more. I was expecting Sandra to lash out. Maybe more bank shenanigans. Maybe a dramatic public meltdown. What I wasn't expecting was an email from Alyssa Baines. Subject, let's talk. I hesitated. After her cryptic warning, I wasn't sure what her angle was. But curiosity got the best of me. I opened it. Trevor, I think we may have a common goal. If you're interested, meet me at the Blackwood Hotel bar tonight at 7 p.m. Alyssa, I stared at the screen. Alyssa wanted to meet? I was an STPID. She was up to something. But if she wanted to talk, that meant one thing. She wasn't happy with Tyler either. And that was very useful to me. That night, I walked into the Blackwood Hotel and spotted Alyssa immediately. She was seated in a booth, dressed in sharp, all-black business attire, a glass of whiskey in front of her. She looked completely in control. As I approached, she glanced up and smirked. Trevor. Right on time. I slid into the seat across from her. You said we have a common goal. Let's hear it. Alyssa took a sip of her drink, watching me carefully. Sandra and Tyler have been careless. STPID. And now they've embarrassed both of us. I stayed silent. She continued. My husband wants to protect Tyler. Sweep this whole mess under the rug. But I don't. She leaned in, her gaze sharp. I want Tyler to face consequences. And I think you do too. I folded my arms. Go on. Alyssa's smirk widened. I did some digging. Turns out Sandra's been financially tied to Tyler for a while. He's been funding her, giving her money, gifts, even paying some of your household expenses. That was news to me. Alyssa slid a folder across the table. Bank statements. Transaction records. Proof that Sandra was essentially being kept by Tyler. You can use this to destroy her in the divorce settlement. I picked up the folder, flipping through the pages. It was airtight. Sandra had been siphoning money from Tyler for months. I looked up. Why are you giving this to me? Alyssa's expression didn't change. Because if you use this, it'll expose Tyler. And if Tyler gets dragged down, so does Sandra. I understood immediately. Alyssa didn't just want Tyler to suffer. She wanted to ruin him. And honestly, I had no problem helping her do it. I shut the folder and smirked. You've got yourself a deal. The next morning, Melissa filed the evidence in court. Sandra's entire case fell apart overnight. Not only did she lose all financial leverage, but the judge also ruled that since she had been receiving financial support from another man, she had no claim to spousal support. She walked into that courtroom thinking she'd walk away with half of everything. She walked out with nothing. No money. No house. Nothing. And Tyler? Alyssa made sure the story leaked to the press. Within days, tabloids ran headlines about real estate heir Tyler Baines shocking scandal. His reputation took a massive hit, and his father, Michael Baines, was furious. Rumor had it Tyler was cut off financially. Sandra's golden ticket? Gone. She tried calling me that night. Probably to scream, beg, threaten. I didn't care enough to find out. I sent her number straight to voicemail. A week later, I met Paul for drinks. So let me get this straight, he said, shaking his head. Sandra tried to screw you over, you flipped the script, and now she's broke, homeless, and her sugar daddy got taken down too? I smirked. That about sums it up. Paul whistled. Damn. That's some cold-blooded revenge. I leaned back, taking a sip of my drink. Not really. I didn't do anything cruel. I just let them dig their own graves. Paul chuckled. So what now? Now. I was free. Free from a toxic marriage. Free from lies and manipulation. Free to start over on my own terms. I smiled. Now, I said, lifting my glass. I enjoy the peace and quiet. And for the first time in a long, long time, I actually meant it.